The riffs are too repetitive, the lyrics make no sense. All the songs are B-sides and the cover art's a mess. There's so much here to tear apart. Listen to it for a week, now that week has passed. It's Why I Hate This Album podcast with Tim and Garrett.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Why I Hate This Album. I am one of your hosts, Garrett Harvey. With me, as always, co-host extraordinaire, Screech to my Slater, Timothy Richardson. Tim, how you doing, buddy?
I am sad. This week, we are going to be talking about one of, if not the worst album by one of the greatest musicians of the past century, Neil Young's 14th studio album, Trans, released December 29th, 1982.
Tim, I would have thought you'd be ecstatic. You love Neil Young.
Yeah. Most recently, this was requested by Phoenix West of that goddamn podcast, but ultimately, we let a coin flip choose this album over Reactor.
It's the easiest way to make some of the most important life decisions. Tim, do you hate this album?
I don't think so. Couple of caveats here. One, very hard for me to say that I hate a Neil Young album, because I love the guy. Two, I do intensely dislike 75% of this, but this record is sort of emblematic of what makes Neil Young great, just doing whatever the fuck he wants without any regard to what anyone else wants. Usually those are home runs. This one happens to be a swing and a miss, but the fact that he took that attitude resulted in him being part of the inspiration for grunge. I mean, he heavily influenced country, similar to like a Graham Parsons. If he didn't have the freedom to make this pile of shit, we might not have gotten all those other great things. I don't hate it yet. I'll say that. Did you hate this?
Well, Tim, if you'd have asked me 1 minute ago, I would have said no. Your justification. This is the first time this has ever happened on this show. Look at those. You see that? Goosebumps. You want to feel them? You can't.
I'm going to feel them a little.
Please don't touch me. Don't touch me.
There we go. Yeah.
That's not where the goosebumps were.
I can certify Garrett Harvey did in fact have goosebumps. That was not just bullshit.
They were on my arm, and you placed your hand firmly on the top of my thigh.
Garrett, they were everywhere.
Great. Yes, I hate it. Oh. Yes, I hate it. I hate it because, Tim, of people like you. I'm so excited. I held back. I held my tongue because I have so many opinions about the things you said and why you're wrong.
Excellent. I love it.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate this, to be honest. I thought we were both going to slide casually into hate, and you still will. I'm going to get you there by song 3. I can't wait to get into it, but that's not the format of the show. We're nothing if we're not sticklers for rules, right?
That's right.
And as sticklers, Tim, I have to say, is this the first time your Young has been kneeled?
This is not the first time my Neil has been younged. I love Neil Young in almost every incarnation and phase of his career. I knew Buffalo Springfield mostly from movies. My dad also had their greatest hits album. I first heard solo Neil Young late into my high school career, but I didn't go much further than the grungy rock stuff.
Which is such a weird place to start.
It is. Rockin' in the Free World, too. That was what I first heard. At some point in college, I found Live Rust. I wore that CD out. I have since purchased it on vinyl. I have the DVD of that show. You actually introduced me to Harvest my freshman year in college. And, I mean, I went a little bit crazy. Admittedly, I attempted to own everything he had ever recorded. I got pretty close, although I never really got into his 80s output based on reputation alone. I've read several biographies. I've read his autobiography that was mostly about trains and cars and that Pono digital music nonsense. You and I have seen him live twice with Crazy Horse at ACL and in Los Angeles solo acoustic. I gave away a little bit of your history, but I'll ask, is this the first time your shaky has been Bernarded?
Wow, that is very specific.
Deep cut.
For no one. First time I heard Neil Young was on my father's Best of Buffalo Springfield. I was hooked from there, and then I moved on to Harvest and just worked my way through the catalog. As you said, we've seen him a couple of times. Both times were magical and completely different, but let's put a finer point on that history between Reactor and Trans. Had you heard these albums ever
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I've still not heard Reactor. I had heard Trans once about a year ago.
Okay. I have heard Everybody's Rockin', though.
Oh.
I don't want to reveal what our next episode is, but it might be Everyone's Rocking, because that album
will not be.
Sucks.
It will not be that.
We have to do like 6 of his 80s albums.
We'll see how this one works its way out. I think this is going to be a tough episode. So you had not heard this album ever. I'd heard it one time, and in that one listen, it made me a little apprehensive to do the episode. You felt confident. We'll see how we end up. That's our history. But what I'm more interested in, Tim, tell us the history of Mr. Neil Young, and it's quite a robust one, so I urge you to be concise.
Yes, I will make this as short as possible. He's 73, maybe. He's been making music for 55 years. His career isn't filled with constant arrests and riding baggage carousels into federally prohibited areas at airports, so I will try to cut it down. Neil Percival Young was... Yeah, we can call him Percy if you'd like.
You're just going to do it, aren't you? You were hoping for a strong yes, but it's happening either way, isn't it?
It is.
You're such a fuck.
So Percy was born in 1945 in Canada. His dad was a journalist and sports writer. His mother, she was a member of the pointless organization Daughters of the American Revolution.
What do they do?
I don't know. They just exist as descendants of people that were fighting in the American Revolution, I believe.
Weren't there a group of women during the Revolution that were called the Daughters of the American Revolution?
We don't have time for this.
You're right. I apologize. Listeners, write in.
Neil had a bout of polio in 1951.
He had a little bit of the polio.
He beat polio.
As we'll find out, Neil Young may be immortal.
Yeah, but God is trying to kill this man. He lives mostly in Canada, other than a short stint in Florida. His parents divorced. He moves to Winnipeg with his mother, where he played in several rock bands, eventually resulting in him dropping out of high school to play with the Squires. And their 1963 recordings can be heard on Archives Volume 1. During this time, he met Stephen Stills, whose band Company played at a lot of the same venues, and he played in folk clubs with Joni Mitchell and wrote a couple of his famous solo songs during this time, including Sugar Mountain and Flying on the Ground is Wrong, the latter of which was a hit for the Guess Who at this point, which is very strange to me. He toured Canada as a solo act, and in 1966 he joined the Mina Birds. The Mina Birds never released an album, mostly because their frontman, Rick Goddamn James, was arrested for being AWOL from the Navy.
That's weird.
He took the bass player from that band and illegally immigrated into the US, relocating to LA, where he formed Buffalo Springfield with Stephen Stills and Richie Furay, I think is how you say his name. Buffalo Springfield is most notable for Stephen Stills's For What It's Worth, but they recorded quite a few of Neil's songs, including one of my favorites, Mr. Soul, which he would go on to make way better by playing solo acoustic, and then way worse by playing over the noise of a cyborg orgy on the album of the week.
My mind nearly blew up when I realized what song that was.
It's a weird cover. Buffalo Springfield was a band from 66 to 68, and then Neil played as a studio session musician for the Monkees. He went solo, recorded a self-titled album, and then he recruits the guys that would go on to become Crazy Horse, and they crank out Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere.
Now, were they calling themselves Crazy Horse at this point, or did he, make them Crazy Horse?
I think he kind of named them Crazy Horse. They weren't really a band before Neil. Then he immediately joins Crosby, Stills, and Nash. They play at Woodstock. Neil skipped most of their acoustic set and then inexplicably refused to be filmed during the electric set. He told one of the cameramen, "One of you fucking guys comes near me and I'm gonna fucking hit you with my guitar." Unclear why.
What is his problem?
He's a dick,
Reasonable
Garrett.
man.
Again, I love Neil. Neil is an asshole. I mean,
Yeah,
he's
he
a
kinda
lovable
is,
asshole, and it's great. I love all of the ways in which he is an asshole, but he is undeniably a jackass.
Yeah.
With CSNY, he records Deja Vu, and then he writes the song Ohio after the Kent State shootings. Then he releases After the Gold Rush, goes on an acoustic tour. Then he forms the Stray Gators, releases Harvest. That album included the song The Needle and the Damage Done about Crazy Horse guitarist Danny Whitten and his love of heroin. It also included A Man Needs a Maid, which was about seeing and falling in love with Carrie Snodgrass in Diary of a Mad Housewife. I've heard people claim that it's less creepy because he eventually dated and had a kid with Miss Snodgrass, but I would argue it's creepier, right?
I think it's a heartwarming tale about achieving your goals.
You would, though.
Hold on a moment. You see a woman that strikes you, Tim. Well, okay. You see a person that strikes you, Tim.
On television that you've never met. Go on.
Okay. Does it really matter?
Yes.
If you see a woman at a social event whom you've never met, you introduce yourself. They're a stranger up until that moment. All that you know about them is what you have seen. What's the big deal? What if it was a cashier at Wendy's? What if you saw a striking cashier? A striking cashier at Wendy's, and you're like, I would like to get that cashier's telephone number and wine and dine them and maybe someday make them my life partner. Do you think it would be creepy to ask that cashier for their phone number?
No, but it would be like going to that Wendy's and hanging out at the Wendy's, spending hours watching her, and then deciding, I will have her.
Okay, well, I think you're inferring a few things. You're picturing a pretty unhealthy obsession where he's just watching that movie on repeat and just jaying off all day.
No. I never said that last part. I don't know the content of that movie. I don't even know if that would be possible. Granted.
Tim, come on. What do you mean, is it possible?
The point
almost
is,
always possible.
It's weird to see somebody and to watch them in a movie or see just a picture of them and say, I'm going to find that person. You haven't interacted with them. At least the cashier at Wendy's you have interacted with. This is somebody that
Your argument is garbage. Most people form relationships now via an interface on their phone.
Yeah, but you interact with them. You say, hey, I have swiped right. I would like to bang you. Would you like to meet and bang? That's fine.
Well, sure. So that's all you're doing with this actress. Hey.
But she's not a participant in this. You are swiping right at her, not with her. And that's the issue.
I see what you mean. I still don't agree. I'm not arguing very well, but I think I'm still right. That's usually how it goes. If you see someone that you find striking and you put yourself in the position to get to meet them, what's wrong with that?
Sure.
It's not like he found her, moved into her house while she was at work and was just like, we're married now. I saw you on the movie and now we're together.
Harvest was the best-selling album of 1972. And Garrett, you'll be pleased to know, a number one on the Dutch mega charts, which they apparently had in 1972.
What, you think the Dutch didn't have radio then?
I am unfamiliar with their culture, their country, where it's located, what the country is even called.
You know, radio's been around for a very long time.
Right, but have the Dutch, Garrett, and have their mega charts.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my God. Yes.
All right. Well, again, I don't know.
How can you know so little about a people?
Neil then goes on to do the Ditch trilogy, Time Fades Away, On the Beach, and Tonight's the Night, all of which are great. After that, he records Long May You Run with CSNY, but S and Y cut C and N their vocals out at the last moment, pissing them off. Later that year, he would also perform with a band in The Last Waltz, and Scorsese had to edit out what he referred to as a lump of cocaine visible under Neil's nose.
Hey, it happens.
It does. Then Neil releases American Stars and Bars in 77, Comes a Time in 78, and closes out the decade with Rust Never Sleeps and the live Rust tour, which is probably my favorite material.
If anybody is new to Neil Young, let us just help you to understand this week's artist. These are all great.
Yes.
That's important to note.
I would say that his string of albums in the 70s were comparable to Bob Dylan's string of albums in the 60s.
I agree. I could see a lot of people arguing.
Robert Christgau of The Village Voice gave him the Artist of the Decade award, and I think he objectively had the best 1970s out of anybody. The 80s would not be as kind, though. His second son, Ben, had severe cerebral palsy and was nonverbal. He spent a lot of time taking care of him and not touring between 80 and 82.
He tries to keep being Neil Young in the studio while also dedicating all time possible to trying to help his son communicate.
Yeah, and like you said, he did continue to release music. In 1980, he did a soundtrack to Where the Buffalo Roam, the Hunter S. Thompson, Bill Murray thing.
If you haven't seen that, boy, it is bizarre. I think Peter Boyle plays his lawyer.
Yes. Yeah, he plays the Benicio del Toro role.
Yeah, it's fucking weird, especially for you younger listeners who literally will only know him from Everybody Loves Raymond.
And then he went real weird. He recorded an album and future episode Reactor in 1981 with Crazy Horse. Then he left Reprise Records for the first time for Geffen, who guaranteed him $1 million per album and total creative control, which they would almost immediately come to regret. His first album with Geffen was supposed to be Island in the Sun. According to Neil Young, it was a tropical thing all about sailing, ancient civilizations, islands, and water. Basically, it got rejected by Geffen. Instead of recording new material, Young went back to some stuff he was doing at the end of Reactor, and he puts together an album that is 3 songs from Island in the Sun in 6 of these bizarre synthesizer and vocoder, like a voice modulator kind of thing.
Yeah, it allows you to put your voice to different notes.
And then the synclavier, which is basically an early version of a synthesizer, calling it trans. It's heavily influenced by the music of the German band Kraftwerk.
Which is not what you want to hear.
It's bad. It's really bad.
If you ever wanted to find a band that you hope says, we took a real departure from our previous work on this, that's the band. Because the previous work is unpleasant.
I mean, it's trans.
It is trans. You're right.
A lot of the songs were originally recorded with the usual Crazy Horse guys, but then Neil started playing around with these different effects, and he eventually removed all of the Crazy Horse contributions. Guitarist Pancho recalled, next thing we knew, Neil had stripped out all of our music, overdubbed all the stuff, the vocoder, and put the synth shit over it. The album was allegedly influenced by the therapy program he was doing for his son Ben. The distorted voice was him trying to translate his attempts to communicate with Ben into like a musical experience. He said, at the time, he was simply trying to find a way to communicate with other people, and that's what trans is about. That's why on this record, I'm saying something, but you can't understand what it is. That's exactly the feeling I was getting from my son.
The problem is that he didn't convey that to anyone.
A lot of this music in this period just seems like a fuck you to David Geffen for not liking Island in the Sun. David Geffen was real pissed after this album was released, and he wanted classic Neil Young. So Neil Young made Old Ways, a country album, which Geffen rejected out of hand, and then he demanded a rock and roll album. So Neil said, sure, and he came back with a 50s-ish rockabilly album, Everybody's Rocking with the Shocking Pinks. Then David Geffen sued him for violating his contract, making unrepresentative albums, making intentionally non-commercial music.
I heard a quote that said making uncharacteristic music.
Right.
Either way, he got sued literally for artistic expression.
Neil countersued because his contract did in fact give him complete artistic freedom, and Geffen was forced to apologize. And then Neil had to do 2 more Geffen records before going back to Reprise. The judge says I can do whatever I want, so here's Old Ways, the album he rejected, fuckface.
Thinking about getting Yoko Ono in here, have her guest on every song. What do you think of that, Dave?
It is possible Neil's early 80s career was either just a goof or an attempt to irritate David Geffen, because Neil Young is kind of a dick. After that, he releases for the rest of the 80s some other unsuccessful albums. He eventually had a return to form, making Rocking in the Free World on Freedom. The 90s, he released a series of relatively good albums. He did the live Weld, Harvest Moon, which was sort of a sequel to Harvest.
Sorta.
An album where he's backed by Pearl Jam. And then he does Prairie Wind in 2005 while attempting to not die from a brain aneurysm that keeps trying to kill him to this very day.
He has had at least 2 scares, and by that, I mean straight up aneurysms.
Yeah.
Nothing kills Neil Young.
Nope. He does a couple of albums about his cars in 2007 and 2009. In 2009, he also releases a retrospective covering 1963 to 72, and I am anxiously awaiting volume 2 of that, but I am aware that I will probably not live to see it.
You know who will, though?
Neil Young.
That's right.
2014, he records A Letter Home inside of a booth in Jack's record store, which is a album that should be great, but is not because he recorded it inside of a fucking booth in Jack's record store using 1920s era technology like an asshole because Neil Young's kind of a dick.
I get it. However, just get one microphone in there so that I can at least hear the songs. Don't get that album. You will not be able to hear jack shit because you know what they couldn't do very well in 1930?
Record?
That's right.
2015, he starts making albums with Willie Nelson's kids for some reason. All in all, just to sum up, Neil Young has released 40 solo albums. He has released 4 movie soundtracks, 8 live albums, 10 albums of archive material. It's basically a Ty Segall pace stretched out over 55 years, and it would be fucking exhausting, except 80% of it is really good.
Okay, great history, Tim. let's take it to the general thoughts. Let's talk first about the construction of the album. As you mentioned, it is a combination of 2 different sessions. There are some songs from the end of the Reactor sessions, which are all very synthy, and then there are 3 songs from the Island in the Sun session Geffen eventually forced him to put on this album. I don't blame you for not picking it up in the dossier. It was not in there. Half of that thing was definitely in Italian.
But again, does he speak Italian?
I had a friend of mine translate to confirm it's a grocery list. Now, some of the things are unconventional, like tires, but the thing of it is, it's supposed to be a dossier for you and me on a history, a full breakdown of the artist and this album. Some of that's in there. I saw photos of Neil Young, some photos of some
the
fruit.
Photos appeared to be through windows at Neil Young's house. Did you notice that?
I'm hoping he just found those on the internet.
Okay.
Although they seemed to be the original prints.
Yes.
We're talking about Gino, of course, our new producer, longtime janitor, promoted from within after an unfortunate incident in which several people were accidentally sent to interview the Dutch and did not return. Lovely gentleman, doesn't seem to speak a lot of English, doesn't ever want to say hi. Gino, you want to say hi? Nope, he's hiding behind the console. He's doing a terrible job. I digress. Musically, Tim, can you even enjoy this on any level?
A little bit. Like you said, the songs from Island in the Sun, which it starts and finishes with them, they kind of undercut what he's allegedly trying to do here. I think the album would have been better musically had he gone in one or the other direction.
I agree.
It might have sounded good if he started off with classic Neil, 1970s Neil, and then slowly as the album progressed, incorporated more and more the weird robot bullshit.
Eased it in. You don't want to ram it in there, Tim. You ease it in. He rammed it right in our ears. Mm-hmm. When you're doing something as delicate as this, you want to ease it in.
Right, of course, yeah. You want to slowly pepper in the fact that you're going to be including robots.
Well, listen, you got one guy who's really enjoying what's happening.
Right.
And then you got another party, you and I, sitting here listening, not enjoying it one bit. You don't just throw cold water on somebody to wake them up. Well, you do. Or scream. I hate the scream alarm clock, Tim. This is a good time to bring this up, right? Please stop. I've noticed that you open my phone and you look at what time the alarm is. You turn it off and instead you scream inches from my face. That's not better.
It gets you up in the morning?
Oh, you're goddamn right it does. There's no snoozing the scream alarm clock.
This is authentic Neil Young. It doesn't sound anything like Neil Young, but the fuck you attitude is certainly on full display here.
I agree. It in no way increases my ability to enjoy this album. You know who he reminds me of in this instance, and it's somebody that you had no problem getting on the hate train.
Jack?
That's right. You can taste the hypocrisy in your mouth, can't you?
This album gives me hope for Jack.
Well, it's going to be a rough decade.
Yeah, that's true. If Boarding House reaches his trans, I have hope that we're going to get some sort of analogous return to form like Freedom, but I'm worried we're going to have several more Boarding House reaches to get through before we get there.
I'm sort of excited. I want to find out how that mineshaft's doing. So back to this.
The music on this album sucks. You're not going to get any argument from me.
What do you think's worse, music or vocals?
I mean, on this one, I have to consider them one and the same, because on several songs, I had to get the lyrics out to make sure that what I was listening to were vocals.
This is the first time that while reading along, while listening to the song, I would get lost because I'm like, surely that's not the part I'm in.
Yeah.
And then I'm reading along word for word. I did some interesting research because the dossier, again, was half some sort of ingredients list and half spare parts for a 1986 Nissan Venture. I wanted to understand contextually what this album was in its time. And I always kind of considered it him trying to get with the times because it is reminiscent of other artists in 1981, 1982. However, the fact that the next album to follow this is what, Rockabilly, points to what you said is that he's just kind of doing whatever the fuck he wants. If it happens to coincide with what's popular, so be it.
I think that's accurate. This comes off sounding very dated. It sounds like what somebody from the 50s would imagine music from the 80s would sound like.
It's almost like what somebody at the height of the 70s disco era thought the next phase of 80s music was headed towards.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it.
I pulled some number one singles from 1981 to see if maybe what was being played in and around Neil Young could possibly be influencing his 1982 effort. So here's what was popular in 1981. Blondie, The Tide is High, Keep on Loving You, REO Speedwagon.
Ooh.
Kiss on My List, Hall & Oates. Morning Train, Sheena Easton.
It doesn't seem like he's necessarily jumping on a bandwagon here.
Right. So then I started looking at what were his contemporaries for 1982. Same thing. Here's some number one singles from 1982. Olivia Newton-John, Let's Get Physical. I Can't Go For That, Hall & Oates.
Ooh, Hall & Oates were having a great couple of years.
Hall & Oates, man, I'll tell you what. I'm going to read the Hall & Oates biography. Nobody wants to know about Oates, right? Ooh, you could be Oates.
Yeah.
I'll be Hall.
Okay.
I'll be Daryl Hall. God, I always get them confused. No, I don't want to be Oates. You're Oates.
Yeah. In the background, don't have to have any talent.
Boy, I know you're trying to sell me on Oates, and it's not going to work.
I'm not trying to sell you an Oates. I'm claiming Oates. I am Oates.
Okay, Oates.
The cover, I think, is very fitting.
It is somebody's depiction of the not-too-distant future. It's all very Logan's Run, if anybody's seen that movie.
The last question I have for you is, how does Neil Young feel about technology?
I think he fears it and wants to master it.
He wants to make technology his bitch. He doesn't want to someday end up being the pet to a robot.
I half agree. I don't know if anybody has to be a bitch in this scenario.
Everyone eventually has to be a robot's bitch, Garrett. That's where we're heading.
Right. Half of this album exists because somebody was like, hey, Neil, you ought to check out this new thing they invented called a synthesizer and a vocoder.
Sounds fancy. I'll make an entire album out of that.
There's not a lot of words per song.
There's just not a lot of stuff here.
Why write 26 lines of a song when you can write 13 and say them 4 times?
Neil Young does not have a lot to say about computers.
Well, I mean,
he's got so much to say.
Sometimes being from the perspective of those having to interact with the computer, and sometimes from the perspective of a computer.
Yes.
I want to be really clear. None of what we just said is a theory. That is actually what these songs are about and what happens in this album. This is not good. Okay, Tim, do you want to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. Track number 1, Little Thing Called Love. The opening to this album betrays what's about to happen to you. It's from the Island in the Sun sessions.
Sure.
So it has a sound that is unlike the rest of the album. It is not nearly as synthy. We have not met our new arch nemesis, the vocoder.
I would say it's not synthy at all. It's a rock song, a kind of a country rock thing.
I would call it dad rock.
I would call it Steve Miller's The Joker, because it sounds like that.
I would call it dad rock.
Yeah, fair enough.
I want to say up top before we get too far into any of the songs, Tim, I really struggled with my notes this week. Outside of the plethora of information about his personal life, which isn't really the point of the show, the content of this album is thin, right?
It is. And it's very lazy from a lyrical standpoint. Like, I could get past the music if the lyrics weren't, only love puts a tear in your eye. Only love makes you hypnotized. Only love brings you the blues. I hate to say it, but it's not much better than like a Max Martin or a Diane Warren lyric.
Or a Troy Brooks.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, did you get the yeehaw at the end?
Oh, we'll get into all the yeehaws and various cowboy speak. You as the resident, you as the resident cowboy expert, and your yeehaw's getting better and better. We're going to need your cowboy expertise later on in the show.
All right.
There's a lot of repetition on the album. Each song, there's like 13 lines. Don't worry, there's 10-minute songs on this album. That happens, and there's nothing said on them. So, fearing, Tim, that you and I might not have enough to say, and I apologize, I don't want to make this a thing. I was compelled to write a rock opera. I wrote a rock opera. We can leave the tracks in their original order, and I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I really want to focus on the songs, but at the end of each song, I will give you a small update and the interpretation. Would you like to hear the name of my rock opera?
Absolutely.
The name of the rock opera is Tim Bortley versus the Transhumanist Android Uprising of $29.99.
One more time, please.
Tim Bortley versus the Transhumanist Android Uprising of $29.99.
Tim Bortley versus the Transhumanist Uprising?
Android Uprising of $29.99.
Of $29.99. Okay. That sounds accurate.
Oh, okay. I see you're breaking down the title to make sure that it all kind of aligns with the content of the album as you understand it.
Yes. And I think
that is the kind of real-time analysis people come to this show for. I appreciate that, Tim. I could see the wheels turning, and I thought, does he not know what the word android is? Or maybe you were looking for any sort of insult. I know you do focus on the word Tim. It's no coincidence that the main character of this story is in fact Tim.
Tim,
keep your attention. Merely secondary. I want to focus on the album, but I will be providing updates to the story as we go along.
Okay. How does the first song factor in?
This song helps to open the opera with Tim Bortley coming from a jewelry store where he was looking at engagement rings for his girlfriend and potentially new fiancée, Patricia. He has not decided, though. We see him leaving the jewelry store. He's contemplating an engagement ring. Maybe he's purchased one, but he's not sure. Because love can put a tear in your eye. It can bring you the blues, Tim, but it's also so great when you take that chance. He's just unsure, though, because he's been hurt so many times before.
I get it. I'm there.
And there's only 9 songs on here, and 3 of them have nothing to do with the other 6. So it was a bit of work to make this happen.
All right. Well, we can move on to the next song. Before we do, can I just leave you with one last
I have seen you use that as a greeting to another gentleman walking in the opposite direction out on the street, and he does respond in kind at least 25% of the time. What's going on there?
You notice that I don't use that as my common greeting. I pick and choose.
Oh, it seems very deliberate.
If you just made that your new greeting, you would only get 1-2% of gentlemen on the street to respond in kind. I know exactly who will respond like that. That's where you get your 25%.
What I find interesting is sometimes I look in your eye, Tim, and I feel as though you've found someone who probably doesn't want to do it back.
Oh, it's a challenge.
Then that makes you want to do it more. Right.
Yeah,
do it more. And then you feel so satisfied when you've almost, I don't even know if this is the right word, peer pressured another grown man into making a mouth noise at you.
About half the people that do it back, they know the game. Other half, they're terrified and they just want me to stop doing it.
So you really enjoy it when it's kind of a yeehaw virgin.
It's a dominance thing, Garrett.
That's neither shocking nor what I asked. Okay. Track number 2, Computer Age.
Now we're getting into the real cyborg Neil of this album. It's bewildering. It's all drum machines, it's synthesizers, it's synclavier, it's vocoder. This is one of the songs that parts of it, I wasn't sure if we were listening to a weird synth or if he was singing through the vocoder. You really have to have the lyrics out in front of you.
For folks that can't picture it, and I don't encourage you to go out and listen to it, imagine you could sing through a microphone and then you could press a key on a piano and your voice would then change to the same note that's being pressed on the piano. If you play somewhere in the middle section of the piano, it's going to largely sound okay. It is as though he has gone out to the farthest right, the highest, the most soprano, falsetto, I don't know which one's higher. The point being is it is so high pitched, it is as though a fire alarm has learned to sing about computers. And maybe that's what we're dealing with. I don't know. I had such a difficult time understanding what in God's name this was about.
There's a lot of references to flying cars and trucks.
We are undeniably in the future.
Absolutely. It doesn't sound like he's fighting a war against the machines. It seems like society has accepted some sort of android or cyborg lifestyle, and he is asserting his humanity here, because he says, cars and trucks fly by me in the corner, but I'm all right. I know I'm more than just a number. There's a little bit of rebellion in that.
Yes, but who is rebelling and against what?
I don't know. The lyrics on the rest of this don't make any goddamn sense.
He starts describing precious metal lines molded into highways running through me so microscopically, days and nights, weeks and months and seasons, rolling through me so chronologically.
What the fuck does that mean?
That's bad lyrics, Tim. I want you to admit right now, those lyrics are downright terrible.
Oh, Garrett, I have no problem admitting that all of the music and lyrics and vocals on this whole album suck.
And so you must hate it.
Well, we'll see.
God damn you.
He also implies that he doesn't fit into the future he's imagining. He says, and you need me like ugly needs a mirror. Now, when I say he says that, what I mean is I read that because I can't be sure that that was actually said in this song.
I really did wonder that. I'm not certain that's what's being said, but I can't present any other counter narrative. So until proven otherwise, that's what he's singing about, and I don't know what it means.
Yeah. This song sounds like the cover art was made before the music, and then he looked at the album cover and he was just like, well, I need a song that fully embodies that cover art, and if that's the case, fucking nailed it.
Yeah, and if anyone is confused, well, it's the art on our website. So if you get the episode through our website, which you should, hatepod.com. But anyway, it's as though somebody took the DeLorean and then they said, okay, now apply this same design aesthetic to an entire future civilization. And they said, all right, write an album about this. That's what we're talking about. And that's how you get something called Computer Age. It sounds vaguely like Mr. Blue Sky.
It does.
With almost a nod or maybe an influence. I don't know which is worse, to a disco-level dance beat.
It's a lot more upbeat than a lot of his other stuff. It seems kind of bouncy, if that makes sense.
It's borderline dancey. The vocoder, I don't know if we've said it enough, Tim. It's outrageous.
Yeah.
It is like a smoke alarm singing at you.
Yeah, it is all-consuming with the exception of the first and last song.
This song in particular and Transformer Man are the two where you're just like, what in the fuck?
Did you happen to listen to the Sonic Youth cover of this?
No, it's got to be better.
It's as you would expect. It reminds you any one of these songs would have sounded better in any other style.
Well, that's proven time and time again. I can name a couple of songs that I've now heard not all fucked up with a synthesizer and vocoder, and I'm like, oh, I just suddenly don't hate this. We ought to check in with where we're at with the narrative of Tim Bortley versus the transhumanist android uprising of 2999. If you recall, we left off with Tim coming out of the jewelry store. He's just coming down the street, maybe about to propose to a special lady, and then boom, Tim, a wormhole opens up in the space-time continuum, and Tim is transported to an apocalyptic future in which computers rule the world. It is indeed a computer age. There's a single computer which rules all other computers and sings of the great computer age. She is known as Gloria.
Ooh.
Sound okay so far?
Yeah, I'm in.
When Tim is transported to the future, it was actually a plot by Gloria to send her henchmen into the past to kill Tim Bortley, the father of the leader of the resistance. Their time machine technology backfired, and instead of sending them there, he was brought to their time computer age run by Gloria.
Yeah, I mean, I knew from the start that we were eventually going to end in some sort of Terminator situation, but, I'm glad.
I would argue that this is considerably different. First of all, the lead character time traveled to the Terminator time. I mean, the computer age. You fuck. So instead, Tim, this is the part that's important. Instead of murdering the father, they actually choose to save Mr. Bortley, to use him as a way to draw out the leader of the resistance and end it once and for all. There's a good chance you travel back in time, you kill the father of the leader of the resistance. Guess what pops up?
Different resistance?
Yep, you shouldn't have been that reticent. So why not use this as bait to draw out the leader of the rebels and then infiltrate and destroy them from within, right?
Sure.
I don't remember that happening in Terminator.
I mean, yeah, I'm with you so far.
What I didn't mention is that Mr. Bortley is terribly injured, as time travel is not exactly a simple science, and he is on death's door. So he begins to be saved by Gloria and her minions, but in order to save him, they must augment him, upgrade him, Tim, integrate him with the system, which is the collective network that represents all of what Gloria controls. It's known as the system, the SIS.
The Matrix,
so they save.
Yeah, gotcha.
No, it's called the SIS, you fuck. And so they save him, but he is now under the control of Gloria. They have hacked his brain with their advanced computer age technology, and they will then use him to infiltrate the resistance.
Okay.
Track number 3, we are in control.
I was pretty sure we were in trouble with this song just from the title. He uses the letter R instead of the word R.
He's the 6'9" of his generation. He's using it like Toys R Us.
Yeah.
We are in control.
Mm-hmm. The background music starts off like a bizarro rockin' in the free world until robots start singing. It sounds like the synthesizer / drum machine version of that song.
I feel like you swallowed a very important line, Tim. You started to say, until the computers begin singing.
Yeah.
Now, I want to be clear, this could be very confusing for a listener. We are not talking about my hit rock opera, Tim Bortley versus the transhumanist android uprising of 2099. We are talking about the actual meaning of the song We Are in Control, which is sung by, as you said, Tim, robots.
Yes.
Or computers.
We control the data banks. We control the think tanks. We control the flow of air. We control the chief of staff. We control the TV sky. We control the FBI. We will prevail and perform our function. Again, not in your crazy nonsense. In the actual song, we is murderous robots or murderous computer systems bent on the destruction of humanity, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Neil Young is just terrified of Skynet.
If there's any confusion as to who is in control, We Are in Control is said 12 times in a row.
Yes.
And that is inappropriate.
He also uses the acronym CCTB, which he later defines as Chemical Computer Thinking Battery.
I am so thrilled you found that acronym. I looked high and low.
Yeah, it's in there.
Hey, Gino! push-ups. Tim, remind me.
He loves it, man.
Yeah, well, okay, so remind me in about, what is it? He's 72, so in about 10 minutes, remind me, the moment his red little face pops up instead of a water break, guess what he's getting? Push-ups, Gino! That guy's gotta have some punishment for not doing the basics. I mean, it's in the song like 8 times. Say it one more time for us. What is CCTB?
Chemical Computer Thinking Battery.
Boy, that's great.
I think that's how he's referring to people, or I know you appreciate this term, meat guys.
No, that's your term. You proclaimed yourself a meat guy.
Right.
3 episodes back.
And proudly.
I still don't know what it is.
In the future, when we battle robots, I think we will all band together under the banner of meat guy.
Well, you know what? Now I'm back on board. This song's terrible.
It really is. Parts of this seem to be about his fear that robots might take his job. My theory for the whole album, before you brought in your Tim Bortley or whatever, was, again, that he was...
Please don't be so dismissive of my art.
I kind of came to the same conclusion without the backstory that Neil Young had been involved in a literal Terminator-esque event and was trying to warn humanity about our future computer overlords.
God, it's entirely possible.
It's really the only way to take this. Why else would he have made this song, Garrett? Why else would the guy that sang Harvest, the guy that wrote Cinnamon Girl, why would this guy have written We Are in Control? Fucking Pocahontas,
It's got to be a
Garrett.
subtle warning to the dangers of worshiping at the altar of technology.
Absolutely. So, I mean, something had to have happened, like a huge event in his life.
It's obvious he had a real-life Terminator situation. This came out a good, 2 years before Terminator 1? James Cameron stole Neil Young's life. Or maybe he paid for his life rights. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. We should
Maybe
look that
it's
up, though.
possible.
Hey, Gino! Oh, he's already doing push-ups. Oops, sorry.
It's possible that David Geffen, in an attempt to recoup some sort of profit from this entire debacle, Geffen heard the story and sold that to James Cameron to recoup some of his losses.
That is the kind of sleazy, backhanded nonsense that I've come to expect from the music industry. Tim, I think we nailed it. Granted, we will say allegedly because we absolutely have to, but I think, Tim, you'd feel comfortable not saying allegedly and just outright saying you claim personally without me agreeing necessarily that James Cameron stole the entire idea to Terminator from the life of Neil Young.
With the help of David Geffen.
Well, he was part of the deal for sure. He was the inside man. I have the least to add to our entire story because it's exactly what's in the song. There's no interpretation required. As I mentioned, Tim Bortley is now in the future. He has been augmented and is now under the control of Gloria, the leader of the system, the robot uprising that is hunting and exterminating mankind so it can rule the globe. There's really not much to say.
This could be his brainwashing. The computer is assuring him that it is in control. He has to do what it says. He has no option.
Absolutely. You nailed it. You haven't even seen the first draft, and you nailed it. I did come up with a different name for CCTB, although the one that's actually apparently in the song fits just as well. Mine was Computational Compliance and Tracking Bureau.
Oh, I like it.
Sort of a Gestapo-style robot police force that goes out tracking and hunting humans, looking for various infractions.
Such as being a meat guy.
Right, but they've trumped up charges. It's a...
We don't have to have charges, Garrett. That guy's a meat guy. You can just execute on sight.
Tim, I want you to answer this honestly, and I'm not going to make any judgments.
Okay.
So, are you a... I thought I could say it. Sorry, let me try again. Are you a robot?
I am not.
Excuse me, not believe that answer.
Sorry?
No, that was a terribly unconvincing answer.
Hold on. No, Garrett. I can do it.
I am now more suspicious of
Garrett, I can do
your
it.
roboticism.
I can do it.
Well, it shouldn't be that hard.
A human being, not a robot.
It's odd you're a laughing robot, but it's clear you are a nervous laughing robot.
Yeah.
I am going to get to that exoskeleton.
Listen, Garrett, if I were a robot, would I have accidentally forgotten the word for human the other day?
That's exactly what a robot would do.
Track number 4, Transformer Man. This is the song that is allegedly for and about his son, Ben. He responded better to the vocoder voice than he did to Neil's actual voice, so we get more of this goddamn soprano bullshit.
It's really harsh. I can't even do an impression. My vocal cords don't vibrate at that frequency.
It's almost operatic.
It sounds like somebody shouting through a theremin.
I will take your word for it, sure.
Or just okay,
Gino,
you know what it sounds
bring
like?
us the theremin. Okay, no, he's still doing push-ups.
Out. That wasn't the point. Yeah, he's still doing them. Anyway, my point is, at the very least, it sounds like a sentient theremin that is forcing you to listen to a song it wrote, and that song's terrible. Or a mellotron. The highest pitch of a mellotron, not that different from this. And it's the whole song, and it's just him going, Transformer Man.
I think you can do a great impression of it.
Oh, it's that.
Did you listen to the version on the MTV Unplugged set?
Yeah, that actually might have been the first version of that song I'd ever heard.
It was for me. This song is not terrible. I mean, it's kind
of dumb, but it's super enjoyable. I will listen to that version of that song. Not anymore.
Here's the thing. Without an intimate knowledge of what Neil has described this song to be about, this song is fucking stupid.
And he failed to let anybody know until years after it had already taken place. So,
according to Genius Lyrics, this is in part about controls that were specifically designed for his son to help him operate Neil's model trains that he loves so much.
Why is it always trains?
I don't know, Garrett. He's a weird old man. Transformer Man, remote control, direct the action with the push of a button. You're a Transformer Man. Now, if I may predict, I assume that Tim in the story has been turned into the Transformer Man?
Correct.
Okay.
He is essentially a walking, talking, remote control meat puppet.
Every morning when I look into your eyes, I feel electrified by you. At this point, he is presumably falling in love with Gloria. Okay, your eyes are shining on a beam through the galaxy of love.
Do not hijack
Transformer Man, let us throw off the chains that hold you down.
No.
Okay.
You fucker. Don't you dare try to hijack my rock opera. I'm not here to justify every word in these songs. However, I will if forced. I have written a 134-page treatment, not including the score.
Well,
You know how long it took me to learn how to write out sheet music?
I mean, most of the week. I've seen the actual notes you took for the album, and they are sparse.
It is mostly sheet music. I'll tell you what, Tim, from one guy to another who now knows how to write sheet music, I did a terrible job. But that doesn't change the fact that, yes, as you pointed out, he is the Transformer Man. He is being navigated directly into the human rebel camps. And they don't question it because he just looks like a man. And more importantly, he looks like a familiar person. Somebody people around the camp swear they've seen before.
Track number 5, Computer Cowboy, aka Sis Crusher.
"15 lines, 4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, Tim, were you excited when you saw Computer Cowboy, aka Sis Crusher?
I was at first. Garrett, I saw the word cowboy, and I will admit that all other words just blurred into nothingness, and I focused on that cowboy, but I have to say, no, cowboys don't use computers. This is not what cowboys do. They ride on horses, they camp out on mountains together with other cowboys, they cook around the fire, they tell stories, they play guitar. Sometimes they murder a whole bunch of Indians. They get in fights in bars when they come to town. They wear chaps. And whenever it gets cold outside, sometimes they have to huddle together for warmth. It's not weird. It's a great life. Some would say the best life, and a life that, a lot of people, I suspect, and I'm hearing, are longing to return to. One thing they don't do, Garrett, is use computers. The worst part of it is, unlike Bon John Voji, I suspect Neil Young knows that.
Nailed it. I have to say, Tim, you're being very narrow-minded in your definition of a cowboy, and frankly, tolerance does stretch into the Wild West. You need to be tolerant of your expectations of what the cowboy of the future may do. He may be, in fact, a computer cowboy. So they might be out there on the range, but the range is doing sweet hacks. Like your various Hugh Jackmans via Swordfish.
I mean, that appears to be what this is about, but I feel like he is hijacking the concept of a cowboy and using it for his own selfish gain. He says here, Computer Cowboy, he rides the range until midnight. Ride along, Computer Cowboy, to the city just in time to bring another system down and leave your alias behind. I thought either hacker or possibly he's comparing a computer virus to some sort of cowboy.
I think you're right. I think it's a hacker. What else could a sis crusher be? Did you have any theories about what a sis crusher is?
I Googled it quite a bit, and I found a couple of things. One, it seems to be what a lot of computer programmers refer to themselves as in their Twitter handles, some variant of that.
You found like a modern day presence of people referring to themselves as sis crushers.
I think it's sort of like a retro thing. I mean, I had the same question. What is a cis crusher?
I love, Tim, that you feel as though the cowboy is misrepresented, because one of my notes early on in the listening process, I'll just read it verbatim here. You can see it just says cowboy misappropriation. Question mark? Do you feel the cowboy is being misappropriated? Do you feel it's cultural appropriation, cultural cowboy appropriation?
I mean, again, I think it's more stolen valor.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yikes. I don't know if this is on par with stolen valor.
I would argue that.
You and I, both, I've seen it. You and I have worn Wranglers. You have various intricate regalia that I would say is cowboy themed, though I wouldn't necessarily call cowboy wear.
Well, when it comes together.
Imposter?
No, I am in training.
What in the fuck? That's fantastic. You're in training. You are a cowboy trainee. Do you have a cowboy master or doggy meister?
Well, it's a little more complicated.
This sounds like a complicated relationship. I am troubled, and I've never been so excited and hesitant in my entire life to ask any more questions.
I believe one day, I hope one day, to become a cowboy, it's sort of like a karate or some sort of martial arts where...
Okay, so you have a cowboy sensei.
Right, yeah, I can wear the jeans. Can I wear chaps? No, I haven't earned chaps.
Is there a ceremony or is there a rite of passage as you move from level to level within cowboy training?
There is an intricate ceremony. However, thus far, my parents have declined to come. They said it was weird and that they wanted no part in it.
Did anyone at any point upon hearing about this point out that it's possible this isn't real and these people are not cowboys?
No, they're very authentic.
I don't know what that means. I'm not sure I need to. So do you have like a level? Is there a name for you? Are you like a weeblo? What are you?
I'm a jeans guy. I got boots. I started off with boots.
Oh my gosh, your level is defined by the level of accoutrement which you are allowed to adorn. Tim, I love learning about your life outside of this show.
Yeah, and it goes from bottom to top.
So you are a jeans level cowboy.
Yeah, first you show up, you got to wear Dockers, tennis shoes, you got to wear a braided belt and a tucked in polo shirt, okay?
Okay.
First thing you're allowed to do is you get the boots. All right, so that's the first level. And it seems like boots, because, you know, they're called cowboy boots. It seems like that would be an advanced level. But again, it goes ground up.
I think it's a foundation. I think it's clever as could be. Plus, if anybody's ever worn cowboy boots, they take the longest to break in.
Absolutely. Yes. So you already get this. Okay. Then after that,
I don't think I will ever get this.
You get to wear the jeans. That's sort of your yellow belt, if you will.
Oh, I will. Please don't ever stop talking.
After that, you get the belt, but you just have to put it in the belt loops. You don't actually have the belt buckle yet. You have to earn that. That's the fourth level.
Fascinating.
After that, you get the chaps, but you have to be nude from the waist up. They're very clear on that. You're not allowed to wear that polo shirt anymore.
Okay, hold on. So let me make sure I understand this. And throughout the process, you've exchanged your nerd wear, or I guess I don't know what to call it. We'll call it probably city wear. You have exchanged various articles of your city wear for your cowboy gear, but when you get to the level of chaps, you then lose the polo shirt and you're getting the chaps in exchange.
No, not in exchange. You get the chaps and have to lose the shirt. Then you have to earn.
Well, that's what I mean. Every time you've exchanged out your khakis for your jeans, your boots for your loafers.
Yep.
So now you've exchanged your shirt for chaps.
Right, but at this point, you're
too
now
advanced nude from the waist up.
Yeah, but because you're too advanced to wear a polo shirt at this point. Doesn't fit with the rest of it.
It's cold out.
Oh, Garrett, cowboys are tough.
That's part of your cowboy toughness training? I have seen you with your arms in the freezer for hours. Is that part of your cowboy toughness training?
Oh, yeah, that's what I was doing, yeah. Again, I have not earned the chaps, so obviously I'm not walking around shirtless, but I want to be ready when I do get there because I feel like I'm going to make it to that level. Anyway, then you get the shirt with the pearl snap buttons. So that's the next thing. After that, you, of course, get the bandana.
Okay.
What?
I don't know if that's really in play anymore.
Oh, it is. Once you've earned these things, you don't have to wear them at all times.
They could be largely ceremonial.
Yes, but you're allowed to wear them.
Just quick aside, Tim, I wear these, well, not a bandana because I'm not 9, but again, I've worn jeans, I've worn boots, I own boots, I'm wearing boots. What do you mean I get to? I get to right now. I haven't gone through your bullshit training.
Right. Again, you're stealing the valor of real cowboys.
Okay, I apologize for asking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I have asked.
Obviously, finally is the hat.
Right.
And to be clear, we are very offended when you wear your cowboy hat.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. It was intended to offend you, and I'm glad to hear it's offending others that are like-minded, because you're an idiot. I want to ask, Tim, so you said you don't have your chaps. So you've got chaps, shirt, and hat to go, correct?
And bandana, but yes. And belt, of course.
You don't even have belt or buckle?
No, I'm still... Well, I've got belt, but not buckle.
Well, what's the point?
Well, that's the thing. It's to make you look silly.
It's a hazing
This is
thing.
motivation to get that buckle.
Okay, we could spend all day on this, so I'm going to wrap it up, but I can't wait to learn more, and it will come up again on the show. You've got quite a ways to go. How many years do you figure you have till you earn your hat?
It's hard to say. It's different for everyone. It is a lifelong pursuit, but I mean, I'm hoping, mid-40s, I hope. Be a cowboy in the mid-40s. Also, at some point, I'm going to need to learn how to ride a horse, I think.
What?
I suspect.
How have you made it all the way to jeans and you can't get on a fucking horse? You're not a goddamn jeans-level cowboy.
Garrett,
I can get on a horse right now.
Horses are gigantic monsters. They weigh like 1,500 pounds. And have you seen their teeth, Garrett? They can bite your fucking hand off.
Absolutely. The only reason a horse does not eat you or I is because it does not have the taste for it.
Yes.
I took you a moment to get on board. I'm glad you did. Yeah, they would eat you and me in a starvation situation. It's pony v. man if we enter World War III.
Okay, so back to your opera. If I may add, if I may add a little bit here. The computers have ravaged the human population. Now it's a war between the remaining surviving humans and the computer overlords, but simultaneously, the thinning of the human herd has allowed a group of ponies to rise, and so they are sort of a third army of pony men, or just ponies.
No.
I'm making it better, Garrett. You have to admit that.
How would they be pony men?
Well, okay, we'll forget the pony men thing that I said.
Are the ponies of normal pony intelligence?
Yes, they're feral wild ponies that are running around, and they'll fight either computer or man. They don't care.
Because they're ponies.
They're a wild card.
What do you mean fight?
Well, they'll attack and bite, and they at this point, I assume we're in 2099. They've probably had time to develop that taste for human meat.
We're in 2999.
Oh, good God! Yeah, no, they're eating people, Garrett.
This is absolutely fascinating.
You think that in 980 years, ponies will not be roaming the earth, consuming the flesh of man?
I can't say for certain.
I can.
I mean, now I kind of do.
Yeah, of course they will.
I know that you can, but I don't know that you should.
Let's get back to the song. I feel like we've wasted enough time on my personal life. Can I read to you the outro here?
Okay. Please do.
Computer, cis crusher. Crusher, cis crusher, cis crusher, come a kai yippee yi, 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 computer cis crusher. This is a fucking oppressive album, Garrett. It's wall-to-wall garbage. You know what? I fucking hate this album. I'm not going to wait.
Yeah, easy, Tim. We aren't even to the end yet.
I mean, this is bad enough that I can't imagine anything good would ever come out of this man who just came off of the best 70s anyone has ever had.
It makes you want to sue a man for his artistic expression.
Absolutely. I am on David Geffen's side.
For this song, at least. And we should mention, in case it's unclear, that's all sung by robots.
Of course.
That all that Western speak? Robots. There's real hoof noises in it, though. Did you catch the hooves?
Yeah.
Glad we got that authentic sound in there. Maybe a guitar or two, Neil? No? Horse clip-clops? I'm sure you're dying to know, Tim, what is happening in Tim Bortley versus the transhumanist android uprising of 2999.
Mm-hmm.
In this song, as you can probably imagine, Computer Cowboy, Tim has been taken into the rebel camps where he is seeking his son at the control of Gloria. And unfortunately, his son, Tim, recently went missing. While on a mission alone, he disappeared. He is feared dead. Now, what you and I, the viewer, know, of course, he probably disappeared the moment Tim Bortley traveled in future and time, didn't have a chance to have him.
Here's the question I have for you. You keep saying son, but he exists 1,017 years into Tim's future. Grandson. We'll say grandson.
That feels about right for the level of focus that was put on this album. Yeah. Although, Tim, I never stated what year it was when Tim Bortley was going to buy that engagement ring.
It was 1982.
Yeah, that's in your mind.
This is all in our minds, Garrett. This is nonsense. Track number 6, Hold On to Your Love. So now we're back to some sort of 80s upbeat island song, sorta?
Right. They chose to implant 3 songs from an Island in the Sun sessions that couldn't sound less like the rest of the album, they said, how are we going to disguise these 3 songs that have nothing to do with the rest of this? I know, we will put them at the 3 furthest points from each other. 1, 6, 9. No one will ever notice. David Geffen, you deserve to lose money for this.
I mean, this just sort of exemplifies my comments for the whole album. It's just so fucking lazy.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to spend any more time on this.
The only thing I want to say is so that we can give an update on the rock opera, and I'll keep it brief. This is the moment in the end of the second act where, of course, Tim Bortley begins to lament that he didn't propose to his girlfriend before he was sucked through a time vortex. Mm-hmm. And so he's learning the lesson to hold on to your love here in this apocalyptic future where the idea that you'll necessarily get another day with your loved ones is not guaranteed because, again, there are robots hunting you.
At any moment, you might get sucked through a time vortex to 1017 years in the future, negating the fact that your son exists.
Right. So, Tim, the part of the rock opera I need you to contribute is naming the son. Who is the leader of the resistance? His last name is Bortley.
Bob Bortley.
You've done a terrible job. I actually picked Bort.
I want to say Bort, Garrett. That's my contribution.
You contribute nothing.
I'm going to edit out that bit in the middle.
If you were
Fuck you.
Don't you dare steal my Bort. So, okay, leader of the resistance, Bort Bortley. Track number 7, Sample and Hold.
Back to music being performed by and for robots.
I felt like this had a real boarding house reach feel to it.
Yes, and even the name sounds like it could fit on that.
It's 8 minutes. It opens with a lot of robotic talking.
Mm-hmm.
It is some sort of robot that is trying to get a sample and hold.
Yeah.
It lists hair, blonde, eyes, blue, weight, 110, disposition, even, mood code, rotary adjustable.
I assume they're describing the characteristics of Mr. Tim Bortley, or possibly Bort Bortley, a name that I came up with.
You didn't. It is, of course, Tim Bortley. I think this song actually might have been the inspiration for Tim Bortley versus the transhumanist android robot uprising of 2999. Obviously, because they do talk about them taking a sample of a human being and it's all sung by robots. But the music in this song in particular made me think of, have you ever seen the movie Heavy Metal or Heavy Metal 2000?
Yeah.
It kind of felt like that. This whole album, when it's not being tracks from Island in the Sun, has a very heavy metal feel to it. If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, it's usually a fantasy-inspired voyage by somebody who is in a magical realm, but all of the animation it's kind of like Frank Frazetta? Is that the guy who did all the covers of the Conan the Barbarian?
I think so. There's lots of breasts, right? I remember breasts.
A lot of breasts, yeah. And then there's like creatures, and they're very violent. Heavy metal's a lot of fun. It was made in around this time?
Yeah.
Heavy Metal 2000, not bad either. But not as good.
Was the music this type of music? I don't remember that at all.
It was, oh yeah. So it would be a lot of hard rock, but you might remember a certain South Park episode with Awesome Boobage. And so when they would go on like The Voyage, you get a lot of synthy stuff, and there'd be a heavy guitar over it, but you'd also have like,
so what you're saying is the soundtrack to Heavy Metal is definitely better than this.
Oh, not even a question, but that's kind of what got me thinking of that vibe. So when you picture Tim Bortley versus the transhumanist android uprising of 2999, kind of think of it in that style.
Well, I've already picked a style. You waited until track number 7 to give me a style to think of it in, and so I'm not going to do that.
Obviously an update to the rock opera, because we can't keep away from it, and these songs aren't really about anything. This is, of course, where Tim Bortley, determined to get back to his hopeful fiancée in the past and save his son of the future, the leader of the rebels, he has decided, with the help of other rebels, he has hacked his own body to load a virus into the system when he returns to report on all of the information he learned, which will bring down their defense systems long enough for the rebels to attack, which is merely a distraction so that he can reverse engineer the time machine technology with the help of his human compatriots and hopefully get back home.
Yes.
He has now returned back, and what he's come to find at the robot headquarters with Gloria is that she has taken his DNA, and he sees hundreds and if not thousands of copies of him, and the computers are moving around taking samples and building the next iteration, the perfect model, all based on his physical visage, so that his son will lead the resistance against his own father's face should he survive.
I love it. We need to contact James Cameron.
I need to contact James Cameron. We specifically, legally, do not need to contact James Cameron.
I own 50% of this.
Sure, Tim, I will write up the paperwork. We'll get it notarized. That's not what this is about. For the sake of our show and your freedom, you cannot contact James Cameron.
Yes, you're right. I have...
Well, let's not get into it. I don't even think you're allowed to say.
We can say there was a Jonathan Davis incident and there's a restraining order. I don't think we need to say anything more than that.
Good sum up. Track number 8, Mr. Soul.
Why is this on here?
I couldn't believe it. I had to look it up to make sure I wasn't mishearing things. It's a cover of the Buffalo Springfield song, Mr. Soul, which is not one of my favorite songs by any stretch of the imagination, but did not need to be redone in the style of trance.
I genuinely love this song. I've heard it solo acoustic a number of times, and I think that's great. I don't know why he would play one of his old songs in this new style.
In this song is when he brings back the vocoder from Transformer Man. It was not until it comes back at the end of the album in this song that I realized, this ruins a song instantly. Yeah. It does not matter what else is happening.
Without it, this version isn't terrible. The guitar work on it is not bad. You throw that fucking vocoder on here and I want to strangle a robot. Their throats are they're so firm.
Do you have any idea? Oh, those aren't throats. Do you have any? It's a fallacy to think that a robot would require a throat. They have no vocal cords, no digestion. Why would you build one? The robots of the future will not look like us. They will seem innocuous, and then they will kill you.
I imagine they're just made up of mostly guns.
I don't even think you need them. I think they're just going to look like tiny little metal dogs, and they're just going to murder you with their sharp sticks. Because you know what, Tim? Robots don't get tired.
That's true.
So it just has to be strong enough to take me kicking the shit out of it.
Yeah, and it will be.
Good God, just give it like a tortoiseshell outer exterior where its legs can just tuck back into itself, and while I kick the fuck out of it, and then when I'm all tired and winded, little legs pop right out, sharp stick, gets to just stabby stab stab. Yeah, I won't make it 6 weeks.
Okay, so I guess we could discuss the lyrical content of this song, but I don't think
Can we?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it really fits in here.
He wrote this song in 5 minutes in 1968.
Right. Well, no, that's not true. He wrote it far before that. He told the story of that in 1968. Is there a way that this fits into the musical?
This is the theme to when Tim has gone to implant the virus that will hopefully murder Gloria, setting back the robotic uprising and allowing the rebels to attack while their defenses go down as the virus works its way through the system. And while that's happening, of course, Tim, using the knowledge he learned and the upgrades he received from the rebels, because I didn't mention this, his computer cowboy, the Cis Crusher, his son, who has gone missing and is presumed dead, as you and I know, he's stuck in a time paradox because he doesn't exist, has created technology that allows him to harness time travel and return to his own time. So using the technology of the Cis Crusher, his son, the leader of the rebellion, he returns, and this is where Gloria refers to him as Mr. Soul, and he learns that there's so much more to the plot. She does not want to destroy humanity. She wants to enslave it. She wants to integrate it, Tim. There are the lyrics in this song. In a while will the smile on my face turn to plaster. Stick around while the clown who is sick does the trick of disaster. So obviously Tim is saying, boy, if I just stick around, you're going to turn me into this metallic automaton with a plastered face of no expression while I do your bidding. The clown, of course, being Gloria, the evil AI that has taken over.
Wow, robots are like the clowns of the future.
We do not have time to get into clowns again, but you're 100% right.
All right.
I think a new shirt idea for the show, spot on. Because I say spot on to you all the time. Tim, you are spot on.
It's a little vague, but
it doesn't sound like you're on board. You've ruined it for me. It's tarnished. I never want to see it.
Making you that shirt.
God, I kind of want it. Don't do it. Track number 9, Like an Inca.
This entire song sounds like a dry run for Crime in the City, which would come out 7 years later. I think there's similarities to both Cortez the Killer, obviously, and Like a Hurricane. There's a meek attempt at a political statement on here. It's a lot more subdued than Like Your Ohio, Your Campaigner, and I kind of don't hate it, and I can already see where the plot of your rock opera is going, but
Stop trying to predict my rock opera.
That should be a shirt. Stop trying to predict my rock opera.
You know what? You're 100% right, Tim. Spot on. Stop trying to predict my rock opera is far more emblematic of the tone and what you should come to expect from us.
Anyway, who put the bomb on the sacred altar? Why should we die if it comes our way? Why should we care about a little button being pushed by somebody we don't even know? Cold War kind of stuff, nuclear war, etc.
Sure, all of this and the use of robots could just be a euphemism for the autonomous nature of capitalism and the ever-growing march towards globalization of the early and mid to late 80s.
Honestly, I think it's literal.
Yeah, no, he's definitely talking about fucking robots, man.
Not fucking robots. He is talking about robots.
Right.
Not
just
sex
robots.
With robots. To be clear.
Sure.
Okay.
No mention of robots fucking.
There's the sounds of it, though.
Yes.
There's a line that I genuinely like in here. When he says, "The gypsy told my fortune, she said that nothing showed."
Sure.
I think
that's a good line.
Yeah. We mentioned Hitchhiker, an album he wrote in 1976, and he took the entire chorus from this song. "I wish I was an Aztec or a runner from Peru. I would build such beautiful buildings to house the chosen few." That's entirely from that song.
He ripped himself off.
Right. This is another one from that Island in the Sun sessions.
It rounds out the trilogy, makes no sense on the album, and it's a shame to try to close a concept album with something that is not, runs almost incongruously of the theme.
However, I will say I liked it quite a bit after the horseshit we've just come through.
Well, yeah, because it's almost a song.
Well, it's
and
9
what
minutes
it lacks
of a
in
song.
quality, I say 10. It is like 9:52.
Yeah, I think it's the best thing on this album.
I really like We Are in Control.
I know you do, but you're an idiot.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you like bad things.
Yes, I do promote them. All right, Tim, let me wrap up the rock opera and we can get the fuck out of here. Of course, as you can probably predict, as Gloria is attempting to integrate Tim, he implants the virus, the defenses are taken down, the rebels attack, Tim slinks off and attempts to fire up the old time machine using the technology he gained from his son Bort. I take the literal lyrics from the song at the end. I feel sad, but I feel happy as I'm coming back to home. There's a bridge across the river that I have to cross alone, like a skipping rolling stone, like an Inca. And I would say that that is a brave, representative moment where he's using technology that, it nearly killed him when he was brought there. He's taking a leap of faith. He's going out into the unknown, a lone traveler hoping to make his way back, be able to have that child, Bortley, to lead the resistance. How do you feel about that?
I kind of like this song. Maybe I like this album.
You don't.
No, I don't.
This is less for you. This is more for me. This was not my intent with the rock opera. Like I said, I felt compelled to do it, one, because the content in some portions are literally seemingly a rock opera, but also there just wasn't much to say, so I felt like a little color commentary was needed. But additionally, when I finished it, it almost felt to me like you could use this as a backdoor pilot to the show Quantum Leap. Sam Beckett could be Tim Bortley. He's trying to make his way back home, knowing all this time as he leaps from body to body with a mission to make his way back to his original life. He has to get there in order for humanity to survive.
I like that quite a bit.
I loved Quantum Leap. Or it's just a standalone film.
Or it's nothing, because this album is nothing.
But it's not nothing, right? It's Tim Bortley versus the transhumanist android uprising of $29.99.
It sure
pretty
is,
sweet.
Friend. What you have done, as stupid as it is, and as stealing from James Cameron, admittedly in reverse as it is so much better than this album, Garrett.
I don't...
You seem real angry.
Compusult.
It's not. Frankly, it was an insult, and it shouldn't have been. I enjoy what you did. I like it.
I can't unhear the fact that you called me a thief and called my thing stupid. You realize that's difficult to hear. I worked really hard on this.
Yeah, it's good. You know what? I like it.
It doesn't mean anything to me anymore. I'm going to burn every copy of this, and you and I aren't going to sing it after the show together. That's not a thing I want to do anymore.
That's not true. We are absolutely singing this.
Tim, how did this thing do?
It's not entirely clear. According to Billboard, this peaked at number 19. It spent 17 weeks on the Billboard Top 200. Presumably it was not successful, or Geffen would have not sued him for making deliberately non-commercially viable music. This was his best chart position until 1992 with Harvest Moon. So this did better than Freedom.
Weird.
I will also point out, I do not have the official album sales for this. However, 1987's Life is his all-time least successful studio album, and that has sold more than 400,000 copies.
That is shocking when you consider, granted it was 1982, but never once has it been released on CD in America.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it did fine. I mean, it didn't make any money, or at least not the money expected to. What did people think of it?
There's one critic that I think we should discuss, and this is Robert Christgau. If you'd like to play the Robert Christgau game.
Well, you know I would.
So the Robert Christgau game, for anyone that this is their first episode, and for those of you, I am very sorry. Basically, Robert Christgau is a rock critic who has been reviewing albums for 50 years, approximately. That's all well and good, except that he is a crazy person, and what he writes in his review may or may not relate in any way to the album or to the grade that he eventually gives the album. And so I'm going to read the review, and then Garrett's going to take a guess at what Robert Christgau gave the album.
Read away, Tim.
Like almost everyone, I thought this was his dumbest gaffe since Journey Through the Past. At first, his Devo buddies at least figured out that robots sound more lifelike if you program in some funk beats. Granted, good old Joe Lala does add the occasional kerplunkety, but down beneath the vocoder quaver in which Young sings most of the silly sci-fi ditties, they belong rhythmically to Billy Talbot. Gradually, however, I figured out that the robots also sound more lifelike if they're singing those grade A folk melodies Young makes up when he's in the mood, because this is as tuneful as comes a time. Also realized that
What the fuck, man?
Also realized that although Young's sci-fi may be simple, it's not silly. Or maybe I realized that although it's silly, it's also charming. I'm sure you'll be pleased to learn that his unending search for romantic perfection is understudy by an android company. Garrett, what did Robert Christgau give this album?
Robert Christgau gave this album a B.
A minus.
What the fuck?
Robert Christgau.
He dumps on the album.
He said it's as
9/10
tuneful as it comes a time.
Yes, then he gives it the most ridiculous compliment humanly possible. God almighty, Christgau, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Got me again. That is how you play the Robert Christgau game. That was great, Tim. All right, Tim, that is what a pseudo-professional had to say about it. We're kidding, Robert. We love you. Please, come on the show. Were there Amazon reviews for this?
There were 106 Amazon reviews. It got 4.2 out of 5 stars on average, 45% 5-star, 1% 1-star.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Yes. A lot of the 5-star reviews read something to the effect of, if you don't like this, you can't call yourself a true Neil fan, or in more than one case, simply great ear music.
That's fascinating. I want to know the other ways she's musicking. All right, Tim, well, what do you got for us?
This is by Amazon customer entitled, "This is Neil Young, ? From 2009. I remember when I got this, how blown away I was. One day, I was playing it softly at about 165 decibels, and my roommate came home and asked, "Who the hell is this?" I said, "Neil Young." He said, "This is Neil Young?" At the time, I was recovering from a very serious neck and back injury and got a Commodore 64 computer to give me something to do, and was beginning to learn to play computer music on it.
Computer music, yes.
So perhaps it has something to do with my affection for trans. It was also during the Reagan years, and my big brother-ish paranoia was in full swing. So a song like "We Are in Control," a song about computers controlling everything, was very with the times. Computer Cowboy was way ahead of its time. Bottom line is that you never know what Neil will do next, and he's always willing to gamble instead of play it safe, like most of the corporate rock bands of the era seem to be doing. 4 out of 5 stars.
I couldn't agree more. No, that was so long and weird.
I apologize.
What else you got?
This is by Owlberg. It's called "One of Neil's Many Pinnacles" from 2000.
All right. Wait. One of Neil's many pinnacles?
That's right.
Okay, go ahead.
I feel sorry for anyone who picked up on old Neil after the mid-80s. Granted, he's done some great work in the 90s, but Everyone's Rocking / Trans Tour was possibly Neil's finest moment. He divided into 4 separate sets of music. He did the folkish / countryish stuff on a stage decorated like an abandoned saloon. Then the stage changed, and out came the heavy rockin' Crazy Horse material. Slowly, as Neil and band played the hits, the set is being transformed, get it? To become the slick, aluminum, shiny showcase for the trans material. Sequencers, synthesizers, vocoders, wraparound shades. Over 3 hours later, just when you thought it was over, as an encore, the full 10-piece Everybody's Rockin' band appears in matching pink suits to do rockabilly and country fried Neil. It was a hoot and a holler, a howlin' rock storm, a a fun visit to Neil's space lab, and some quality time with one of popular music's greatest folkies. 5 out of 5 stars. I read that review just to point out, that sounds like the worst concert ever. I mean, I love Neil Young. I love seeing Neil Young. You throw in acoustic, you throw in Crazy Horse. If he wants to do the rest of this, he can go fuck himself.
I could even sit through Trans, I think. I'm not sitting down for that rockabilly nonsense.
It would be, the Trans would be interesting just to see what he's fucking doing.
It's just a MacBook now.
Then it was like
he just sits quietly next to it reading. Tim, I know of at least one concert where I was out-concerted. Mm-hmm. And something like this, over 3 hours of this, like, again, first half great, second half, fuck you, we are leaving early. Are there concerts that you have been forced to leave early because you've just been over-musicked?
Well, I think possibly the one you're referring to is North Mississippi All-Stars.
Correct.
When we did, because it was 4 hours into that show, and they promised...
How many washboard solos can you play?
Three in 4 hours. Who knows how long that went on?
They only stopped the last one because there was something wrong with the amp. Another was coming. I at least spent some of that time on the ground.
Okay, now imagine if at that time, if instead of leaving, we got 10 songs from Everybody's Rocking and the Shocking Pinks.
That is a recipe for suicide. Great reviews, Tim. Who's this for?
An audience of one. It's either for his son, as he claims.
You say that with a little bit of suspicion.
I do, because I suspect the true audience of one is David Geffen. It's really all about...
Just a big middle finger?
Yeah, it's about pissing him off, and it's a funny bit, but I don't want to fucking hear it. I support David Geffen in his lawsuit. I think he was in the right. Don't care what that contract said. This is
Neil
inappropriate.
Young wrong. Completely agree. So that brings us to final thoughts. We've really been through it. What have we not said?
Honestly, I don't have much more to say about this. If anyone in the audience would like a second opinion, there's another podcast out there about this album that recently came out called Detours and Outliers. It's one of their first episodes. I haven't heard it yet because I didn't want to steal all their ideas. Mm-hmm. But I did listen to a couple of their other episodes, and it's not bad. So if you would like to hear a different take on this, if you have gotten to the, hour and a half mark, however the fuck long this is, and you think, I'd like another hour of listening to people talk about trans, you can have that.
That's crazy. You people, stop listening to our show. You know what? That's not true. Thank you, rate, review, subscribe. But get a friend. Tell a friend. Don't listen to 3 hours of this.
Somebody said they were on a drive for 20 hours straight.
Yeah.
And they listened to us the whole way. I have been in the car with you for over 20 hours. It is fucking miserable.
There are a number of highway fistfights that take place. Sometimes I'm driving, sometimes you're driving. And, clearly whoever's driving does typically lose, because ultimately it is your responsibility to not kill everyone. But yeah, 20 hours of us, you, me, bad music, early production issues. That is a big ask. You're crazy. Oh, Tim, I don't remember who it is. I won't embarrass them. One of our listeners recently wrote a review on the old iTunes, I believe it was, that they had a sexy dream about one of us.
What?
I know, right?
I am uncomfortable with this. I don't like it. I mean, I like it. I like it a lot, but I don't want it.
Right. Very flattering. And I mean, I don't know who it is. Very curious to see which one of us it was. And there are not many photos of either of us. There are some out there on the interwebs, a lot of them out of date. I know one that seems to be floating around of me has quite large hair. Hair and beard. I'm much shorter in both areas. You have a few out there as well, and you look identical because you have an unchanging robotic face that I am certain has been planted near me to somehow prevent the Rebel Alliance from taking over what I assume is your robot overlord.
Don't give yourself that much credit. You're not the savior of humanity. I just got bored in my mission and some dicking around.
I might be savior adjacent.
Yeah, you could be, but you're not.
There's nothing to say that a cyborg mole in the midst of a human resistance can't have a buddy. Takes a long time to learn the detailed plans of an uprising. Okay, Tim, those were terrible final thoughts, but I don't care because this album's stupid. So I'm just going to bully you into this question. Do you hate this album?
You don't have to bully me. I fucking hate this album, Garrett. It's a bad album. It's a bad album by somebody I love, which makes it worse.
Right.
I don't think I need to ask you, but I will. Do you hate this?
Yes. Yes, I do. Like you said, it's bad, and on top of it, it's by somebody I love, which makes it worse. That brings us to the end of the show where we beg, plead, thank, and ask once more. Please rate, review, and subscribe. It makes all the difference in the world. Whatever platform you use to listen to the show, it is helpful. iTunes tends to be the most influential, but that doesn't mean you have to do it there. If you listen to us on Spotify or anywhere anywhere else you enjoy the show, leave a review. It's incredibly helpful. Want to reach out to us? You can get to Instagram at hatepod. You can get to us on Twitter at albumhatepod. You can get to us at facebook.com/hatepod. And if that isn't good enough, you can email us at hatepodmail@gmail.com. Don't want to go to Gmail? You can go to our website, hatepod.com. That has every episode we've ever made on every platform you've ever wanted, including your own personal MP3 download, if that's what you want. While you're there, you can click on Contact Us in the upper left-hand corner. That's a nice little contact form. You enter an address. You can send us any questions, thoughts, hilarious stories about albums you used to listen to. Send us that stuff, and we put them together, we package them up, and then we do a special mailbag episode. That's where we thank you and read off these reviews, these stories for Why I Hate This Album. I am one of your hosts, Garrett Harvey.
I'm the other, Tim Richardson.
Riffs are too repetitive, the lyrics make no sense. All the songs are B-sides and the cover art's a mess. There's so much here to tear apart. Listen to it for a week, now that we pass past. It's Why I Hate This Album podcast with Tim and Garrett.